AMD's Strix Halo architecture has been widely talked about for the last year, and a number of products have started trickling out since its announcement. From mini PCs to laptops, and even a couple gaming handhelds, AMD's latest APU promises to deliver both top-flight CPU performance, as well as desktop-class discrete graphics performance, all in a package that draws barely over 100 watts. It's taken some time, but I finally have my hands on the AMD Ryzen AI Max Plus 395, the top-end SKU in the Strix Halo lineup, and thanks to Minisforum for sending out the MS-S1 for this video. Today we're going to dive into the new platform, explain what makes this APU different, and whether or not it's the right system for you. Welcome back to Craft Computing, everyone. As always, I'm Jeff. Before we get into it today, standard disclosure applies to this video. Minisforum did send out the MS-S1 for this video. No money changed hands. Minisforum gets no input over the production of this video, nor will they have the opportunity to see it before it goes live on YouTube. AMD's Strix Halo architecture officially launched in January of 2025, and products have been slowly trickling out since then. What it is essentially a new set of APUs designed for a wide variety of use cases, spanning mobile and laptops, handhelds, desktops, workstations, and even servers. And the MS-S1 Max is pretty much whatever you want it to be out of any of those use cases. Maybe except for gaming handhelds and laptops. But it's a desktop, it's a workstation, and it's a server, and it can do basically anything you want so long as you need a crap ton of CPU and GPU compute in the smallest package possible. This is, again, the top spec system, featuring the AMD Ryzen AI Max Plus 395, one of AMD's silliest naming schemes of all time for a product. This chip is one of the most powerful APUs ever released for consumer use. In short, we're looking at a single package with 16 cores and 32 threads of Zen 5 CPU, along with a Radeon 8060S graphics processor, equipped with 40 compute units of RDNA 3.5 goodness. Like most APUs, the CPU and GPU inside this package share the same pool of memory. In this case, a full 128 gigabytes of LPDDR5x running at 8,000 megatransfers per second. However, this is where Strix Halo starts to differentiate itself from AMD's standard lineup of APUs. While previous APUs have also shared a memory pool, chips like the 7840U for example, they use either DDR5 or LPDDR5X running in dual-channel configurations. Here, the Ryzen 395 has a full 4 memory channels available and can only be mated with LPDDR5X that's soldered in place, and pretty high frequency memory at that, which more than doubles the memory bandwidth available for both the CPU and the GPU. But it's the size of this memory pool that makes this a very unique combination of hardware, especially when compared to traditional discrete GPUs that you're probably used to in workstations. Modern consumer graphics cards typically come with between 8 and 16 gigabytes of memory, with only cards like the RTX 4090 or 5090 including 24 or 32 gigabytes respectively. Because the Ryzen 395 includes 128 gigabytes of memory, that pool can be dynamically shared between the CPU or the GPU, allowing you to allocate up to 96 gigabytes of memory to the GPU alone. There's only a couple ways that you can even approach getting that much video memory into a system. You can spend $5,000 and get 48 gigabytes in an AMD MI210 PCI Express server card, or spend upwards of $8,000 on an NVIDIA RTX 6000 Pro Blackwell. This system is only $2,300. This puts the Ryzen 395 well out in front of not only consumer GPUs, but well out of reach of even workstation and even server class cards that are typically used in AI workloads. While the 40 compute units of RDNA 3.5 on the Radeon 8060S graphics chip is far from the fastest GPU on the market, its massive shared memory pool more than makes up for its lack of top-end horsepower. Remember, this is designed to be a workstation first, and a gaming PC probably somewhere a distant third. Taking a look at the Minisforum MS-S1 Max itself, it is significantly larger than the other Minisforum's workstations that I've reviewed in the past. On the front is a very attractive grille, along with a pair of USB 4 Type-C 40 gigabit ports, a single 3.2 Gen 2 USB Type-A, a headphone jack, and a power button. Around the back, there's a single HDMI port for video out, a pair each of USB 2.0 and USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type A ports, a pair of USB 4 V2 Type C 80 gigabit ports, along with a pair of Realtek 10 gigabit RJ45 networking ports. The S1 also has Wi-Fi 7 and Bluetooth thanks to a MediaTek MT7925 Wi-Fi card. The S1 ships with Windows 11 Pro pre-installed, and aside from Microsoft's own BS, is completely bloat-free. My particular configuration came with a 2TB Gen 4 NVMe drive for storage, but this does have 2 internal M.2 slots if you prefer to install dual drives. There's also a feature that has been a standard on most of Minisforum's mini workstations in the half-height PCI Express expansion slot. But I wouldn't get your hopes too much higher on this one. This is only a Gen 4x4 slot and does not have support for add-in graphics cards. Think of this more for higher speed networking than the 10 gigabit that's available on the MS-S1 or for other external devices. There are vents on the top, front, and rear of the system, keeping air supplied to the twin-fan 6-heat pipe cooling solution bolted on top of the Ryzen 395. And I guess that leads right into the form factor and usability of the S1. It's designed to be used in either a vertical or horizontal workstation on your desk, but is also sized specifically to fit in a 2U rack mount orientation, although Minisforum hasn't announced any mounting solution. 2U rack mounting is called out multiple times in their advertising, and while I did reach out for clarification, they haven't gotten back to me on whether or not they will be making or even selling a 2U rack mount for this. So I guess for the moment, if you want them in a rack, you'll just need to buy a shelf and set it in there yourself. Hey all, Editing Jeff here, and just a quick note, I did just get an email in response from Minisforums about the rack mount. They didn't say anything at all. They literally just sent over 2 pictures of what appears to be a 4-device rack mount that will fit in a 2U space. I have no other information, but I figured I would pass this along as it appears they are working on a rack mount solution, just nothing has been officially announced yet. Overall, I do like the versatility of being able to mount this either vertically or horizontally, and the materials and overall build quality are fantastic, as I would normally expect from Minisforum. I will say I have one major thing that has just been irritating me though, and it's something that's really stupid, and it's not something that they've been guilty of in the past, but this damn sticker. I don't know what they used on the top of this case, but this is the stickiest and most annoying residue that has ever existed on a sticker on a commercial product ever in my office. It will not come off. I don't know what it's made of. My fingers feel sticky a week after trying to peel this sticker off. The sticker is there so you don't accidentally yeet the motherboard out of the back of the case if you remove the 2 screws, and I guess that's kind of important, but at the same time, yeah, I removed 2 screws. I kind of want to remove the motherboard out of the case. I shouldn't be punished with what's literally permanent glue on my system. Get a better sticker. That's all I'm saying. Get adhesive that's not so intense. But like I said, overall, I really do like the design. But that being said, Strix Halo as a platform is a very expensive platform, so let's go ahead and talk about the price. The Minisforum S1 Max, configured with the 128GB of memory and the Ryzen AI Max Plus 395, I hate that model name, but whatever, along with a single 2TB Gen 4x4 drive, tips the scales at $2299, putting the Minisforum S1 Max pretty much right in the bell curve of other 395-based Strix Halo mini workstations that I've seen, at least when it comes to mainstream and smaller manufacturers. GMK Tech is among the cheapest in this configuration at $1,999, followed by Framework at $2199, Minisforum at $2299, and finally B-Link at $2399, and all of these prices are as of October 6th on Amazon. HP does offer the Z2 Mini G1A with a lower spec Ryzen 380 for $2,000, but charges an obscene $3,200 for the 395 Max configuration, and that doesn't even come with storage. Strix Halo is an expensive platform to get into, to be sure, but it's also insanely affordable for what you actually get. Remember how over the last year, I've been trying to cram this NVIDIA RTX 4000 Ada small form factor card into the Minisforum MSA2. This was a 2-slot graphics card that only includes 20 gigabytes of GDDR6 memory. Add in a fully kitted out MS-S1 or similar workstation, and you're well north of $2,200 already, and that's for a completely DIY solution that in the end still had to downclock this by about 15% to get it to run cool inside of that MS-S1. Looking at my previous high watermark with the NVIDIA 4000 Ada SFF, not only are we working with upwards of 6 times the video memory in the Strix Halo box, but both the CPU and the GPU in the Ryzen 395 are faster than the MS-S2 and the 4000 SFF. The MS-S1 might be slightly larger, but it blows away both of my previous attempts at a tiny and very dense graphical workstation. So, kudos to AMD for not only putting together one hell of a 16-core Zen 5 CPU, but for also matching what was the fastest 70-watt discrete card that NVIDIA has ever produced, while also cramming 128 gigabytes of shared memory into this platform. When it comes to CPU performance, there's also a notable improvement from the previous mobile-based workstations that I've seen in the past. The Ryzen 395 is a Zen 5-based chip with 16 cores and 32 threads, though notably it does have a slightly lower boost clock than the Zen 4-based Ryzen 7945HX, which is a Zen 4-based chip that was seen in the MS-S2. Even still, the Ryzen 395 speeds ahead of both the Intel 13900H in the MS-S1 and the 7945HX in the MS-S2 in multi-threaded performance, tested in both Cinebench R15 and R23. The boost clock holds it back slightly when it comes to single-core performance in Cinebench R23, but I'd say the uplift in multi-threaded performance more than makes up for that in real-world workloads. On the GPU side of things, I ran a couple 3D Mark tests as well, and like I mentioned, the Radeon 8060S is around 4% faster than the RTX 4000 Ada SFF in traditional raster, but still falls around 12% behind when it comes to ray tracing. Still, not too shabby considering we're running in a single APU package that draws less power than the MS-S2 and the 4000 Ada SFF. But onto the question that I know I'm going to get asked in this video, and I wanted to try to cover it. I would love to give some speeds and feeds on how this system actually works when it comes to AI workloads. But the truth of the matter is, I'm still figuring out exactly how I want to benchmark that. And I know some people who are deep into this are going to disagree with me here, but running AI and AI benchmarking is still very much the Wild West. Time to ruffle some feathers. Follow me here. For NVIDIA, you've got CUDA, and almost every AI model runs on CUDA. Well, every AI model is created using C++ or Rust, glued together with Python, and then by using TensorFlow or PyTorch or GGML, every model runs on CUDA. But what about running models on non-NVIDIA GPUs? AMD cards can't run CUDA natively and need a translation layer between the program API and the model. Usually, this is going to be implemented through ROCm, although this can also be OpenCL or Vulkan. But which version is compatible with which models? Are the models even able to run? And more importantly, is there any documentation for getting models to run? And once you've figured that out, how do you go about benchmarking the AI models running on different hardware? I have said multiple times when it comes to AI workflow that the biggest struggle to getting AI models to run is making sure they can fit in memory. Well, this is a box that has upwards of 128 gigabytes of video memory that you can utilize, which means you can load just about any model you want. Yes, I'm sure you can load this up with prompts, but how does one user generate enough prompts to do that? Is there a script that can generate an infinite number of prompts? Which prompts require more processing time? This is all things that we haven't figured out when it comes to benchmarking AI yet, and certainly something that I haven't figured out. It's the same story with Intel. They have one API, which should be plug and play with CUDA-compatible workflows, except for the fact that I'm not a developer or a programmer by any stretch of the imagination. I am really good at following documentation to get software running in Windows, Linux, or even Mac OS. But the reality today is that 99% of models or benchmarks have little or no documentation and are designed to run on NVIDIA cards. Much like what I criticized Linux and open source projects in general for, you pretty much have to already know how to make these things work if you expect to make them work. I'm not going to call out any repo specifically, but I went through around a dozen automated AI benchmark scripts on GitHub, and not a single one of them would run on this machine. Not a single one of them had a full dependency list or a how-to on how to run it on AMD hardware. Sure, you could run it on NVIDIA hardware, and it, in theory, could be ran on basically anything that you wanted, including CPU, AMD, or Intel, or even Gaudi. But there were no explicit instructions for getting those AI benchmarks to work. I would try to run a benchmark script only to be met with an error that said Podman is not installed. Okay, I know what Podman is. Apt install Podman, and then run the script again. Oh, now it says Toolbox isn't installed. Well, what is Toolbox? There's no reference to that at all in the repo requirements, and it's not something that I've heard of before. I try apt install Toolbox, but that comes up empty. So I dive down a Google rabbit hole searching for Ubuntu and Toolbox, and any references to any AI processing that I can find. That search leads me to an applet called Toolbox from JetBrains. It's a small program to download remote dev environments that's kind of similar to Docker, and that sounds like what I'm looking for here. So I download JetBrains Toolbox, manually install it, but that just opens up a small GUI window in my Ubuntu desktop, and there seems to be no command line controls. Running the benchmark file again, it doesn't find Toolbox, so that's likely not the right applet that I need to run this benchmark. What about the GitHub project containers/toolbox? That sounds like it might be correct. Download the latest release tar.xz, and Ubuntu says it's not a valid tar file and cannot install. Besides, that project seems to be called by the command toolbx, not toolbox, so that also seems to be a non-starter. After legitimately a couple hours, I stumble onto some reference to podman-toolbox. Podman, the repo and app that I installed at the beginning of this that wasn't listed in the dependency, but I knew what Podman was, apparently has another piece of it called Podman Toolbox. So I apt install Podman-Toolbox, it installs, and now the benchmark script runs. Awesome, so I unflip my table and attempt to run the benchmark again, only this time to be met with an error that there are no models installed to benchmark. No bother with that, there was a script to download models that I saw while I was browsing the directories, so I run that and it pulls down close to 30 gigabytes worth of files. Surely I have models that I can now benchmark, right? Only no, it still doesn't see any models available for benchmarking. I try to load one of the models individually, only to be met with a no GPU detected running in CPU mode, because that's absolutely what I wanted to do here, right? I've installed ROCm, I've installed the AMD GPU DKMS drivers, I found all of your non-documented dependencies, I've installed TensorFlow, I've downloaded the models, and still, you refuse to run even in CPU mode. And for another dozen AI benchmark scripts and repos that I found, it was basically this exact same process, rinse and repeat. I would love to give you some comparison points between this Strix Halo machine and something like an RTX A5000 that is roughly the same price point, or maybe an AMD MI210 48GB accelerator, or do some CPU-only tests with a Xeon 6 or an EPYC Turin box. By the way, all of which I have in my rack ready to test. But the truth is, not only are most AI models written with the world's third worst scripting language, but API calls and dependencies are so poorly documented, I'm amazed anyone who isn't knee-deep into this industry can run anything at all, let alone on hardware that isn't NVIDIA, let alone compare performance between any given model across multiple hardware vendors. This is a problem that I'm working on solving, and I know a number of other people are working on solving as well. But it's also a problem that I haven't solved yet, and neither have many people that are willing to share how they solved it. But by and large, AI speed and efficiency comes down to the architecture that the model was designed to run on, not necessarily what hardware that you're running the model on. There are some cross-platform models out there, and there are some good metrics that you can pull from them. But just like running x86 code on ARM, some apps will run just fine, others not so much, and your mileage is going to vary dramatically. That's all to say that running individual AI models, apps, inference servers, or development can still absolutely happen on a Strix Halo machine. The 128GB of unified memory alone makes it an invaluable development tool for both inference and training. And while the LPDDR5x and 250 gigabytes per second memory bandwidth still pales in comparison to something like an RTX 6000 Pro Blackwell and its 1.9 terabyte per second, it's still basically the best platform for AI development that you can get that's under $5,000. Just be prepared to suffer a bit until ROCm reaches full maturity. Over the last month or so, I've spoken to quite a few people who either have Strix Halo devices, are interested in them, or are developing or deploy AI systems. And there's a decidedly mixed bag around who a system like this is actually for. Let's start with the obvious. Unless you give no care at all to performance per dollar or just want an insanely small system for the clout, the Minisforum MS-S1 is not a gaming PC. Yes, it can absolutely play games, and in fact, this might be the rig that I'm going to take with me to PDX Land next month. But 16 cores and 128 gigabytes of memory is excessive for most people. And for the same money, you can easily get a gaming rig that's nearly twice as fast, it just won't be quite as compact. If you're wanting to deploy and manage an AI inference server for a medium-sized business, including RAG training for your specific internal use, I can see this being one of the more affordable options to get into. Same goes for if you're an AI developer and you need a workstation with as much VRAM as physically possible. You literally cannot do better than 128 gigabytes for less than $6,000. And that requires 3,000 watts and a 2U rack mount system for running a Tesla V100 in a giant NVLink system. For $2,300, you can get a development platform that sits on your desk and draws 160 watts at most. Also, one of the less talked about advantages is the quad-channel memory available on the Strix Halo platform. You get a full 16 cores of Zen 5 with not only 4 channels of LPDDR5x memory running at 8,000 megatransfers per second, but some slight tweaks to the interconnect between the CCDs on the chips themselves, offering lower latency than any other Zen 5-based chip, including Threadripper. Coming back full circle on the Minisforum MS-S1 Max itself. I really like what's on offer here. It's built even more stout than the other Minisforum's workstations that I've taken a look at in the past, including the MS-S1 and MS-A2. It has a wide selection of performance modes from 100 watts up to 160 watts, including a rack mount mode for 100% fan speed, and is moderately well equipped with dual 10 gigabit networking and a PCI Express expansion slot. There's a few things that I wish were a little bit different with it though. I do wish we got more than a single HDMI output for video instead of relying on USB-C for additional displays and just attaching dongles. And while the desktop PCIe slot is nice to have, I actually feel like it's unnecessary in this box, as it's only PCI Express 4.0 x4. I guess you could add a 25 gigabit network card to this if the dual 10 gig isn't enough, or pop in a third M.2 NVMe, but that's really all you can expect out of that slot. And I would much rather shrink the box footprint than have that extra PCI Express expansion slot in this particular machine. The Minisforum MS-S1 Max is available as configured for $2,299, complete with the AMD Ryzen AI Max Plus 395, 128 gigabytes of LPDDR5x memory, and 2 terabytes of storage. Let me be clear, it is not for everyone, but it does fill some pretty gaping holes in the market for both a low-cost workstation and high-memory video and AI workloads that really have no other alternatives right now. If you're interested in picking one of these up for yourself, or any of the other Strix Halo PCs that I mentioned, I will have affiliate links down in the video description. Make sure to go give those a look. On your way down there, make sure to drop this video a like and subscribe to Craft Computing if you haven't done so already. Follow me on the social medias at Craft Computing for daily shenanigans like this. And if you like the content you see on this channel and want to help support me in what I do, consider joining the Patreon. Link is also down in the video description. And that's going to do it for me in this one. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, I will see you in the next video. Cheers, everyone. Now, I was traveling last week, and I irritated some people when I didn't open a beer during my video, and a couple of people said, better make the next one a good one. So, I dug into my fridge and pulled out the 2025 edition of Lagunitas The Waldo's Special Ale. This is a 420 release that comes out every single year. The Waldos, you're not supposed to save. You're supposed to drink it basically right away. This one got kicked to the back of my fridge, and so we're going to open it in October instead of April. Clocking in at 11.4%. For the treasure hunters everywhere, found just once a year, Lagunitas The Waldos. Ho, 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 ho. Ah! I love the Waldo series. I don't know how quite to describe what this smells like. It's a little fruity, it's a little sweet, it's a little malty. The Waldo series is a 420 series of beer. It's usually pretty dank. This is not all that dank. It's not grassy. It's like fermented oranges and grapefruit, but like the best of that aroma, not the worst of it that you're probably thinking when I said it. Okay. There's, that much later. There's the dankness. There it is. Boy, that comes late, but it comes strong. Oh, if you are not expecting that, that's like drinking bong water. Yeah. Sweet, little malty, little... There. It's that far into the flavor. And it's like, all right, that's like a decently, like, well-rounded, like, dark fruit forward IPA. It's a little malty, maybe a little brown ale-ish, maybe with just like a touch of like West Coast hops. And then that second flavor kicks in, and it's as if you just smoked a bowl. Your mouth is immediately dry. It sucks all the moisture out right as it finishes. It's a really weird sensation because this doesn't seem to be a very dry beverage until that last couple of seconds. If you know what this beer is, you know what this beer is. And if you're into that kind of thing, it is a unique experience that you will probably enjoy. Around the back, there's a single HDMI for video out, a pair each of USB 2.0 and USB... Good lord, USB and all of its naming conventions.